In this episode of the TWK Kitchen, I've gone off the deep end and we're making glue. It is no secret that I'm a big fan of hide glue, specifically this liquid hide glue from Titebond. Hide glues have been used forever in woodworking and they are fantastic glues for a variety of reasons. Basically, any place you'd use Titebond's original formula, so that's the one in the red bottle, hide glues are better. I can't think of any reason why you'd not use them. Now, if it's for waterproofing, if it's for extreme heat, you've got epoxy, you've got Titebond 3, you've got polyurethane glues, and they are better in those circumstances. But for general furniture making, for instrument making, for everything basically, hide glues are better. I want to be very clear, this is not my recipe, it's not my idea to make glue. This particular recipe comes from Lost Art Press. They sell a glue called Piggly No Wiggly and they provide a recipe for it. I want to experiment with it and perhaps share it to a wider audience who has not tried hide glue or wants to make their own. So Chris Swartz and Megan Fitzpatrick are behind this. They've done all the experimentation. I'm just following in their footsteps. This is a really simple recipe that has just 3 ingredients and just a handful of steps. The only disclaimer that I need to make is to keep the temperature down. We don't want any of the parts going above 62.5 degrees, I believe. So I'm going to keep it safe at 60 degrees. Any higher than that and hide glues or gelatin glues can start to break down and they just won't be as strong or they'll fail. So the first ingredient is water. This is warm water. It's not hot, it's just warm from the tap. How much water do we need? How much gelatin? How much salt? Well, it's actually very simple. Chris and Megan have developed their recipe where it's 4 parts water, 4 parts gelatin, 1 part salt. That's by volume, not by weight. My brain doesn't love that because my brain's all wonky, but it's fine, we can do it that way. So again, warm tap water. I'm going for 1 cup, 1 metric cup, which is 250 ml. Then I have my salt here, which is 3-ish tablespoons. Now, turns out tablespoons in Australia are 20 millilitres, not 15 in other parts of the world. So about 62 millilitres of salt, which is 3 tablespoons and a little tiny bit. 1, 2, that's 3 and a bit. Then finally we need some gelatin. I've got some gelatin. It is gelatin. It's just gelatin, there's nothing else added to it. As you can see, that is quite a fine powder. It's quite refined, so it doesn't really have much of a smell. I'm going to pour a little bit of it in and then start mixing. We want this as clump-free as possible. So I've mixed that all in and I'm going to keep mixing. You can see it's quite thick, but there are a few lumps, so I'm going to mix it for a couple of minutes and hope to get that a little bit smoother. So that is getting pretty smooth now. I'm going to leave it for a few minutes to hopefully let it settle a little bit more. And I want to talk about how I'm actually going to cook it. So I'm going to be using a sous vide or an immersion cooker. This stick here goes into the water. It has a little fan that draws water into it, heating element in there which heats up the water, and a digital control which gives you very accurate heat control. If you've got a slow cooker that has heat control, or even a double boiler, if you can control that well enough, you can cook it in any of those. If you have, say, a cheap induction cooktop, you might be able to use it. The only problem with these inexpensive, or let's be frank, cheap induction cooktops is that they don't really do low power. They might say they do, they might have a low setting, but they typically will ramp up to 1,000 or 2,000 watts for a short period of time and then let it cool down, ramp back up, cool down. And you can get some pretty extreme temperature fluctuations on the low settings. And that could overcook our glue, which we don't really want. So this is looking pretty smooth now. So I'm going to scrape that off, and it's starting to glue to my fingers, which is promising. I'm not sure. Put the lid on it. This is a screw top lid, which is why I've chosen this. I'm going to set my immersion cooker to 60 degrees. I can dump this in. Has a little grate that I can stop it from bubbling around too much. No, I can't. Haha, that's quite funny. Let's see what happens when I put the lid on. And this would be really good for like a big batch of glue, maybe 4 or 5 bottles could fit in here. It's a litre bottle, so you can make a lot of glue all at once. I'm going to make 500 ml. That's going to do me for quite some time. So this is being set to 60 degrees. So once it reaches 60 degrees, I'll set a timer for 2 hours, let it cook, and then we'll come back. While it was cooking, every 20 to 30 minutes or so, I came out to the workshop and gave it a quick stir. It's been cooking for 2 hours. It's been cooking for 2 hours, so I can stop this. Now the bottle of glue needs to go into the fridge for overnight. It can go for a bit longer than that. And then we'll do a second cooking cycle. So far, that's looking gross. Hopefully it's good gross to the fridge. It's the next day. This has been in the fridge overnight. I'll be honest, doesn't look great, but hopefully we can turn this into glue. I'm preheating this to 60 degrees. So at 35.5 at the moment. Once it gets to 60, I'll drop this in the water and it'll cook for another 2 hours. So that's done cooking. So that's 2 lots of 2 hours at 60 degrees. I've just been keeping it warm until I can get back into here. 50 degrees. If it heats and chills, it's fine. It's not going to damage the glue so long as you don't go over the 60 degree mark, 140 Fahrenheit, whatever it is. And so long as it doesn't freeze, you can more or less indefinitely heat and cool this. So now there's a fair bit of foam on top. I want to scrape that off and then put it into these 2 bottles. Now, I don't really know why it foams. Apparently some different types of salt will cause it to foam more than others. Let's see, can we? Oh yeah, we can get a bit of that off. The foam probably won't hurt the glue, but it probably isn't going to help be a structural joint if it's got a lot of air in it. So this to me looks like how liquid hide glue looks. So that's very, very promising. Well, that's actually very glue-like. The test of glue isn't how well you can cook it at home, but how well it actually works. So how do you use hide glue? In the case of liquid hide glue like this, you'll need to heat it up a little bit. A bottle of water that's just warm from the tap, leave it there for 10 minutes, 5-10 minutes. It should be warm enough because this has just come out of the vat. It's plenty warm enough, so I can just put a little bit on, spread it around. I've got 2 pieces of pine here. I'll do an edge glue up for a panel and see how it goes. It's going to be exactly the same how I normally use liquid hide glue or PVA for that matter. The open time should be about 20-30 minutes, somewhere like that. But unlike PVA, where you can get it out of the clamps in half an hour to an hour, we'll need to leave this for probably overnight. So that's what I'm going to do. Set it to one side and see how the joint is tomorrow. Now, as the next day, it's definitely the next day. I didn't forget to come out to the workshop yesterday. To suggest anything else is probably slander. Glue up is done. It's looking pretty strong, to be perfectly honest. What we're looking from here is not absolute strength. Yes, if it is the toughest glue of all time, that's wonderful, but what we're looking for is when it breaks, if it breaks, is that the glue is stronger than the wood. Doesn't matter if it's half as strong as PVA, if it's still stronger than the wood, it's still going to be quite a good glue joint. So, you know, it's not separating with hand pressure. Now this glue up already has varnish on it, as you can see, so I'm not going to test how the glue up fares underneath a finish, whether it glows or anything like that. But for now, let's try and break this. Now just before I do start whaling on it, you can see that the squeeze out is quite light coloured, semi-transparent, and it's, you know, it's fairly rigid glue squeeze out. It's not, you know, very spongy or anything like that. I can't dent it with my fingernail, but it's coming off the varnish as you'd expect. These long strands. All right, now to hit it hard. Well, yep. Let's try that again, and I'm going to try and break on the glue line, not an inch away from it. There we go. I'm not sure how valuable that was. I'll do some more tests. The first attack split about an inch from the glue line. The second one, it's much closer, but we can't actually see any glue separation at all. It's just split the wood next to the glue line, which is about what you'd expect from PVA as well. So I'll run some more tests. While this finishes defrosting, it's just about done. I want to talk briefly about pricing. Pricing is a bit of an interesting subject because people will have all different opinions on, how much your time is worth, blah, blah, blah. End of the day, pricing for glue probably doesn't affect whether you're woodworking or not, because in the overall scheme of a project, glue costs basically nothing compared to the cost of the wood, compared to the cost of the tools, compared to the cost of the finish. I don't know if it's an entirely valid argument. However, let's talk about pricing. Titebond hide glue in Australia only comes in these small bottles. It works out at $21 or so for this small bottle plus postage. So you're looking at about $89, $90 per litre of this stuff. And I'm going to normalise for a litre because it just makes all the calculations a lot easier. When I did this batch here, I've made up about 350, 400 mil of glue. So I'm going to work on 400 mil. Maybe that's a little bit generous, but whatever. It cost about $24 for the pack of gelatin, which I've misplaced. That was 450 grams. 1 cup is 116 grams. And I used 1 cup, made the 400 mil. Now, if you follow that all through and do the maths, which I have up here on screen, that works about $22 per litre. So $90 versus $22. It's cheap to make your own. Now, I'm not including the cost of salt because that's very cheap. And I'm not including the cost of these bottles. They're $1.50 and they're reusable. And that large bottle, I've misplaced it. The large bottle that I cooked it all in was, I think, $5. And it's reusable. Now, I'm not including the cost of a sous vide because I already have that. But if you have a double boiler or a slow cooker or a crock pot or anything that you can control the temperature pretty accurately on, you can use that because it's all food safe, so you don't have to worry about cross-contamination unless you've got some allergy to the gelatin. So this becomes a very cheap glue that is basically the same as this. Now, I need to buy a bottle warmer. Yes, that'll add to the cost. Looking at about $25, $30 for a no-frills bottle warmer. So I'm still ahead on the per litre cost, and again, it's reusable, and it's not like this doesn't need to be heated when it's cold like it is today. So cost-wise, you can save a lot of money, though that is not my main motivation for doing this. You can save money making your own glue. So that's done. This is the cow clag that was in the fridge. It doesn't move, but the stuff that has been melting, yeah, that works pretty well. So in that test, you can see it took quite a lot of work to actually break the cow clag sample. Liquid hide glue worked as I'd expect. It required a bit less effort than the cow clag. What's interesting is none of these pieces are particularly well jointed. There's a little bit of snipe in all of them, so they weren't a great glue up. Anyway, on the cow clag sample, part of the glue didn't cure. Now, we had a bit of a cold snap where it got down to about 5 degrees in the workshop overnight and humidity was pretty high. But where it did dry, it's torn out a lot of grain, which is what we want to see, because that means it's a wood failure, not a glue failure. So I left this, meant to be overnight, ended up being a week, and all those parts that weren't cured have gone rock hard now. So I think it was just a simple matter of there was too much squeeze out in a bit of a gap caused by imperfect jointing and being colder. It just took a little bit longer to cure. With all that said and done, I'm actually pretty confident to use cow clag to replace liquid hide glue, and anywhere I'd use PVA, Titebond 1 PVA, because it works and it's pretty cheap. And I don't have anything else to say about that. The main reason that I use PVA for laminations for indoor applications is because hide glue, liquid hide glue, is pretty expensive here. Now, this changes the equation. It was really not a big deal at all to make it up myself. I'll make a litre of it at a time and then I'll be set for a year. I'm not going to be selling cow clag, but it's really simple to make at home. Give it a shot if you're interested in hide glues. Thanks for watching.